Hi guys, thanks again for coming back again. Okay, I've got 4 days of rest, which is fantastic. So what I'm doing is just relaxing and taking the children out on their bicycles and things like that, basically just to relax myself. The last day of my shift, which was a couple of days ago, was really good because it allowed me to get involved with an RTC. Now, in the old ways, they used to call them RTAs, which is road traffic accident. They changed the wording to RTC, which is road traffic collision. TC, yeah, collision. Because they're all accidents, but what sort of accident is it? So it's a collision. So we had started at 7:30 in the afternoon or the evening, and we were just getting the vehicle ready, so we had to make sure the meds are okay, that the oxygen and everything else, the pack's all sorted, for us to book on and go when we needed it. And literally within about 5 minutes of booking on, there was a car that came up to our station with 2 people in it and said, "Oh, did you know that there's been an accident just down the road?" And we thought, "Oh, no, we didn't, because our control hasn't told us." As it turned out, it had just happened, so control didn't know anything about it. No one phoned up 999 within those few seconds. So we ended up calling control saying, we're going to attend, because they didn't know about it. We got there in 4 minutes, which is brilliant. And the accident involved a bike and a car around the local area in Christchurch. So it was pretty cut and dry, really. You know, that the car didn't see the bike, and the bike got the worst off of it. He's fine, and the car driver's fine. A bit of a mess with his bike, and he didn't have any pain. It was absolutely amazing. And I said, "Oh, have you got any pain anyway?" He said, "No, I just a little bit achy, but So we did our top to toe to make sure he was all right. Got to his leg, and a little bit more pain, but nothing major. We had to cut his trousers to go and get to get to where the wound was. Now, I have to say, bikers always wear really thick protective clothing, even in the summer. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're going to get too hot. What's most important is your safety, because you may be a good rider, but there's people out there who don't see bikes and they just go smashing into them, and all of a sudden you've fallen off your bike. He had a Kevlar type of jean, which offered some protection. Okay, it wasn't a full leather suit, because he felt too hot. But he did have very good bike boots, which also saved his leg, his foot. So we had to cut through his Kevlar, and we were shown a very interesting hole in his leg where his bone had broken. He had a tibia and fibia. You got tibia fibia bone in front on the bottom part of your leg. So you got the kneecap, then you got the tib and the fib. And the tibia is the one that's on top, the main one you can feel when you run your finger down from your knee down to the bottom of your foot. That's the tibia. And it goes towards the toe end, which is why I remember tibia toe. Yeah. And there was a nice little hole where the bone had snapped, gone through the skin, and came back out again, back into the body. So there's a little bit of blood on the floor, nothing major. Yeah, he didn't have hardly any pain. I think it was adrenaline and shock, basically, that stopped that. So what we did, we scooped him onto his side, made sure that he was comfortable, laid him on his back, and we put we put him into a like a bean bag cover over his leg, and then we'd sucked out all the air, so then his leg was completely immobilized. Okay, so instead of putting it into a splint or anything like that, this uses like a bean bag effect cover, which is really good, because you can do the whole body, or you can do individual limbs. Then we put him onto the stretcher. We gave him check him over again to make sure there's no other bleedings, and took him into the hospital, where he was stitched up, and I assisted on the stitching, not the actual stitching themselves, but the cleaning of the wound and irrigation of the water and that sort of thing. So that was really good. So I really enjoyed that one. The day before, we had a very, very messy ambulance because we found a chappie on the floor, and he had a lot of blood around him on the floor. He was drinking as well, so obviously with alcohol, somehow it makes the body get rid of the blood quicker when it has a hole in it. Thins out the blood or whatever. He doesn't remember how he got to the floor, and basically there's a pool of blood by his head. So our first concern was catastrophic bleeding. So you remember in your ABCs, it's C for catastrophic, ABC, airway, breathing, and then circulation. Okay, so if you guys are going to OSCEs, this is important. Of course, scene safety situation first of all as well. And what happened was that we got him on board the scoop, which is that little 2 bits of plastic board we put on the left hand side, right hand side, scoop him up, click them together, and then we can lift him up rather than having to lift him the whole thing onto our stretcher, all the while holding his skull, his head, because it was bleeding quite profusely. Got on board the ambulance, and as they took away the bandage to have a look at his wound to see how it was, this little sort of ching, this little fountain of blood came out from his head. Sort of like from here, went ting, bing. And it was not an arterial bleed, thank goodness, because if it was an arterial bleed, it would shoot up into the ceiling. What was happening was that he had a venous bleed, which is still a vein under pressure, but only a small amount of pressure, okay, because it's a vein rather than an artery. And you saw a tiny little thread. It looked like a piece of hair, but it wasn't. It was a very tiny vein, and it was just pulsating enough to see this little squirt of blood coming out everywhere. So that was quite interesting as a student to see that, but he was losing blood. I mean, basically by the time he left our stretcher and went into the hospital, the ambulance looked like a murder scene. It was absolutely covered in blood. We had to wear aprons and we had to wear goggles because of this blood spurt. And when I trying to clean up the stretcher, there's little squares of material, like a rubbering for people to sit on, and they're divided by little dips, throughout the stretcher bed, and each of these dips were absolutely cake full of clotted, smelly blood, and I remember I can still smell it in my nose now. It's such a strong, pungent iron smell when there's that much blood everywhere. I didn't feel sick or anything like that. It was just like, oh, I don't really want to have a liver tonight, or a steak, let's say. So, but that was really, really interesting. And but he was fine. We got him to. He lost a lot of blood. He got him to the hospital. Went straight into resus rather than the ED or emergency department or A&E, whatever you want to call it. He then decided to arrest on the table, which means his heart stopped. They brought him back. He rosked. He brought him back from the arrest, and he was fine after that. He was cracking dirty jokes and all sorts of things. So they're obviously giving him blood, and he was fine. So on both those occasions, the patients were fine afterwards. But it was the mechanics of the accident that was interesting, and what happened to the human body at that point. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on that one. My reflection